sarada vanalalidaloham Trayana karunaya ghanagantamam Prapta sakalyana gunaraha bhajaha Bande guru siri charanaravindam Prapta sakalyana pranavasa Bande guru siri charanaravindam 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 Mahaprabhu gakitya nitya gita Vaditra madhavu manasurasenam Mahaprabhu Kitana nita gita Vaditra madhanmanasurasena Romanchakam pahasutaranga bhajo Bande guru siri charanaravindam Romanchakam pahasutaranga bhajo Bande guru siri charanaravindam Bande guru siri charanaravindam Siri charanaravindam Shiri vigaraya radhana nityanana Shingaratana mandira majanandahu Shri vigrahara radhana nityanana Shingaratana mandira majanandahu Yukta sabhaktam chaniyujatopi Vande guru siri charanaravindam Yukta sabhaktam chaniyujatopi Vande guru siri charanaravindam Vande guru siri charanaravindam Vande guru siri charanaravindam Chatura vidyata hi bhagavat prasada Swayana tirtana hari bhakta sangam Chaturvidhasti bhagavat prasada Satana tritam hari bhakta sangam Kitveva tirtem bhajata sadaiva Vande guru siri charanaravindam Vatraptem bhajata sadeva Vande guru sri charanaravindam Vande guru sri charanaravindam Vande guru sri charanaravindam Shri Radhika Madhava Yoya Para Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Namnam Shri Radhika Madhava Yoya Para Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Namnam Pratikshana Chahalala Pasupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Pratikshana Chahalala Pasupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Nikunjayana Rati Keli Sirai Yayalla Bhira Yuktiraya Pikshanam Nikunjayana Rati Keli Sirai Jajali Yukti Apekaniya Patra तत्र
साक्षात् अतिबलवश्च वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
तत्र साक्षात् अतिबलवश्च वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
साक्षाद्धरित विना समस्तय शास्ति युक्त तथा भायित इव सदभिम्
साक्षाद्धरित
समस्त शास्ति युक्त तथा भायित इव सदभिम् किन्तु परभूरया प्रियैव तस्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
किन्तु प्रभो प्रियैव तस्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
यशय प्रसादाय भगवत् प्रसादो यशय प्रसाद नगति उतोपि
यश प्रसाद भगवत् प्रसाद यश प्रसादं नगति कुतोऽपि
भयनस्तु वां तस्य यशत्रियसान्दं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
ध्यायां स्तुवां तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपदाय भूतले श्रीमाते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामी इति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नामसे सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा स्वर्णवादी पाश्चात् दीक्षतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात् दीक्षतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसद् गौरभक्तवृन्द
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसद् गौरभक्तवृन्द
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसद् गौरभक्तवृन्द
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसद् गौरभक्तवृन्द
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसद् गौरभक्तवृन्द
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopal Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopal Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Haraya Namah, Krishnaya Advayo Namah.
Hare Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah.
Yadvayo Madhvayo Kesavayo Namah.
Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah.
Gopal Govinda Ram Siri Madhusudana.
Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana.
Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohana.
Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohana.
Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita.
Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita.
Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavato Gita.
Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jayo Radha Nila Madho, Jayo Radhe Nila Madho, Jay Radha Nila Madho, Jayo Radhe Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nila Madhava, Jaya Radha Nila Madhava, Jaya Radha Nila Madhava, Jaya Radha Nila.
Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jay Radhe, Jayo Shri Radhe. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Jagannath, Jay Baladeva, Jaya Subhadaram. Jayo Sita Ram, Jayo Sita Ram, Jay Sita Ram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman.
Jaya Jam Vishwapara Param Saprabhajaka Chadya Stutara Sarashishimadis Pratishta Bibiti Sams Tapakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhaktirata Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhocharamina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shail Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mavarana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jai Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Grihabnidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopukna Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Prajapam Vrindavan Maturdam Ki Jai The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Shrimaya Purnavadip Eka Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakuruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Mati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bolo Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies. All glories, all glories. Glories to Shri Guru Shri Gaura.
Namaste Narsingaya. Namaste Narsingaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Prahlad Lad Daine.
Prahlad Lad Daine.
Hiranyakashi Puvasa.
Hiranyakashipu Vaksha.
Shilatankana Kalai.
Shilatankana Kalai.
Ito Narsinga Parato Narsinga.
Ito Nisinga Parato Nisinga.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsinga.
Jato Jato Jami Tato Nisinga.
Bahe Narsinga Hridaye Narsinga.
Bahe Nisinga Yudaye Nisinga.
Narsinga Mudin Sharanam Prapade.
Narasimha Madi Charanam Prapade.
Tav Kar Kamal Vare Nakam Adbhuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Dhanabringa. Keshavadhirta Narhari Rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Hare Naga.
Abakara Kamala Bare Naka.
Adbhuta Singha.
Dalita Hiranyakashipu Dhanabringa. Kesavadrita Narari Rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare.
Jaya Narsingha Dev. Jaya Narsingha Dev. Jaya Narsingha Dev. Jaya Narsingha.
Jaya Nisinga Re. Jaya Nisinga Re. Nisinga Re. Jaya Nisinga Re.
Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Prahlad.
Jaya
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev. 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 Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev. 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 Jaya Gurudev.
बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय.
Jai.
प्रहलाद महाराज की जय. और प्रेमानंद.
Hari Bol. श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्यवत्याय नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्यवत्याय नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्यवत्याय नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रियसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रियसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
जे तुम्हार शरण लोय तारा वंश पूर्ण होय
जे तुम्हार शरण तारा वांछा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी
कृपा करे करा तारे वृंदावनवासी।
मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो बस
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियावा।
नयने हेरी बो सदा जुगल रूप रासी
अमिनायने वासना जुगलपरासी।
यही निवेदन धरो सखीरानुगत करो सेवा सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दासी रोय ये न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी यानि कानि च पापानि प्रमाद्यधिकानि च क्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि प्रमाद्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि प्रमाद्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि प्रमाद्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय वृंदे देवी जय वृंदे देवी जय वृंदे देवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल वृंदे देवी तुलसी देवी महारानी की जय।
वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिया के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सत्य बच्चे वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिया के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सत्य बच्चे वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारे देवी सत्य बच्चाए जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की। O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry the names of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. So there are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees, to dedicate a life of propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the very scriptures of scriptures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be entertained while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Bancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Jayananta Koti Vaishnavindikija. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhavamahadavani Nivapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratiparam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Drishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrisham Yajan Anuragam Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amaninamanadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Bhajagari Shakamaye Mama Janmane Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaitu Kitwai Oinandatanu Jakinkaram Paritamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shudharaya Bananam Gadagarudhaya Gira Pulakarinchitam Bapukada Davanama Grahane Bhavishati Juga Itam Nimishayana Chakusha Pravisa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Asli Shava Pagadaratam Pinastumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tatava Vidadhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Sa Ivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratveshe Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutarishmade Bhakti Viranta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavadi Pachatyadi Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because its praise raised the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thanking oneself a Lord on straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be created with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if his hand draws me rightfully by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan, Guru Pranam Mangala Charan. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakchurmilitam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manavistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Bandeyam Shri Guru Sri Jotapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatya Rishatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjojala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravane Shri Murthai Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Pusidanta Dvantarine Nama Gaura Kishoraya Satyavera Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhe Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Bhumitsvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhoma Sri Jagannatayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Namama Varannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattamakam Krishna Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataro Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantaradha Kantanamustute What is that? Where are we now? Yeah. Yatam suratu pango mama mandama tergati masarvasya padambojo radha madana mohanam divya vindaranya kalpadumadha shmara nagara shingasanastu shmaradha shila govinda devo prishtali vishema manushmarami shmara sara sarambi bamshvata tatastita karshan venu sanar gopir gopinata shriyestuna tapta kanchana gorangi radhe vrindavanishwari Vrusabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gaura Pramanandi Hari Bo Shri Guru Vandana Jai
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shivasa Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we're going to hear a special lecture by Srila Prabhupada. You can start it, Dhananjay.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam. So whole Vedic system is designed in such a way that ultimately one is saved from this process of birth, death, old age and disease. Long ago, when Vishwamitra Muni came to Maharaj Dasarath for begging Ram Lakshman to take them to the forest because one demon was disturbing. They could kill, but the killing business is for the Kshatriyas. This is Vedic civilization. It is not the business of the Brahman. So, the first reception Vishwamitra Muni got from Maharaj Dasara, that Oihistang jad punarjanma jayaya. You great sages, saintly persons, you have given up the society, you are living alone in the forest. What is the purpose? The purpose is punarjanma jayaya, to conquer over repetition of birth. This is the purpose. Similarly, this Krishna consciousness movement is also meant for the same purpose, punarjanma jaya, for conquering over repetition of birth and death. You should always remember this. A little mistake will spoil the whole scheme. Little mistake. Nature is very strong. Daividjesa gunamai mama maya viratva. Very, very strong. So, you all boys and girls, those who have come from America, I am very much thankful to you, but don't be less serious. Be very serious. And another thing I request, especially to the Americans, that America has good potentiality to save the world. So if you preach very nicely in your country, and not all of them will be interested, but if a section of men in your country, you can turn them to become Krishna conscious, it will be great benefit to the whole world. But the aim is the same, punarjanma jayaya, to gain victory over this process of birth, death and old age. This is not fiction, this is fact. People are not serious. But you can teach your people, otherwise the whole human society is at risk. They are like animals without any kind, especially this communist movement is very, very dangerous to make big animals. They are already animals, and this movement is making big animals. So I am speaking to America because America is a little serious against this communistic movement, and it can be counteracted because the process is current since a very, very long time. Deva Asura, Devasura, the fight between the demigods and the demons. So the same fight is there in different name, communist and the capitalist. But the capitalists are also 80%, 90% demons. Because they do not know the science of God. That is demonic means. So there is good chance in your country to make them, or they rectify their demonic principles, and then they will be very strongly able to fight with the other demons. Because if we become Deva, Deva means Vaishnava. Vishnu Bhakta Bhave Deva. Asuras Tad Viparjat. Those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, they are called Deva, or demigods. And those are just the opposite number. The opposite number also, they have got some god. Just like the demons, they worship especially Lord Shiva. Ravana, the example, we are not accusing unnecessarily. Ravana was a great demon, but he was devotee. Worshipping Lord Shiva means to gain some material profit. And in the worshipping Vishnu, there is material profit that is given by Vishnu. That is not karma. But Vaishnava, they are not aspiring after any material profit. The material profit automatically comes. But then, they do not desire, annavilasita sunnam. Material profit is not their aim of life. Their aim of life, how to satisfy Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, that is Vishnu. Vishnu asya devata. Nothing, and the demons, they do not know that to become Vaishnava, that is the highest perfection of life. They do not know. So anyway, our request is that you, all young men, who have taken to this path of Vaishnavism, and there is very good chance to preach this cult in your country. So, even if you are not very much successful in other countries, in your country you will be very much successful. There is good potential, and try to make them stronger to fight with the demonic principles. Thank you very much.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we see here a very, let's say, strong message by Srila Prabhupada that he sees that there is a great opportunity in the United States to teach people Krishna consciousness. Now, not everyone's going to accept, that's a fact. But if a certain number of people, and it only has to be 1% of the population, if they accept this Krishna consciousness, you could change the whole culture of America. And because the rest of the world follows what the Americans do, you could change the whole world. So this is a very important lecture Prabhupada gave to show what expectation he has for Krishna consciousness in the United States. And if we can understand this, then we have a chance to be, let's say, world-class preachers and convince people of the absolute importance of Krishna consciousness to solve all the problems of humanity. This is not an exaggeration, this is a fact. First you have to solve your own problems through Krishna consciousness. Then you will have the faith and determination to help others solve all their problems. And what is the actual goal of life? Ahistam yatad jayam jayaya. In other words, Prabhupada says, when Vishwamrita Muni came to meet Lord Ramachandra's father, Dasarath, the way they say hello, or the way they said hello to each other in ancient times, was by this mantra. And what does the mantra say? It says, how are your efforts going to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death? They didn't say, hello, how you doing, sab tike, etc. No. The question was, how are your efforts going to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death? So this is the way people spoke in the past, in ancient times, because this is the purpose of human life, to liberate yourself from the cycle of birth and death, go back to Godhead, where you came from. So, to teach people this is very difficult in this age, because there's so much illusion. Even our own devotees, they're in so much illusion by the material nature, that although they hear these things, they don't want to follow it. But you see, if you hear this lecture, and it's very important to hear it, Prabhupada's saying, look, if you take this seriously, you could make America a Krishna-conscious country, and then the whole world would follow. Basically, that's what he's saying. And he says, I have some good faith. He said, of course, you know, the one major enemy is communism, and America has some willpower to fight communism, so that's good, he said. But even the Americans, 80 to 90% are demons also. So, but there's some hope, because there's possibly 10% of this population that could become Krishna conscious, and that's enough to change everything. See? So it's an amazing lecture, and because some people came late, we're going to play it again. Oh, Dhananjay, are you here? Or he left? Okay. So go play it again. It's on the bigger screen. It's not on my computer. It's on the big computer. Let's play it again and hear it, because it's very important to understand this message. This will give you an idea of how much importance Prabhupada gave to devotees preaching in the United States, because this could change the whole world. And then we'll come back to our subject today, which is this lecture that we started yesterday, the third canto, 26th chapter, 32nd verse. You see it? It's very important to hear this lecture. Do you see which one it is? Okay. You want me to come there and help you?
saintly persons, you have given up the society, you are living alone in the forest. What is the purpose? Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam. So whole Vedic system is designed in such a way that ultimately one is saved from this process of birth, death, old age and disease. Long, long ago, when Vishwamitra Muni came to Maharaj Dasarath for begging Ram Lakshman to take them to the forest because one demon was disturbing, they could kill, but the killing business is for the Kshatriyas. This is Vedic civilization. It is not the business of the Brahman. So, the first reception Vishwamitra Muni got from Maharaj Dasara, that Oihistang jad punarjanma jayaya. You great sages, saintly persons, you have given up the society, you are living alone in the forest. What is the purpose? The purpose is punarjanma jayaya.
Okay, stop it right there.
To conquer over repetition of birth.
So, this is the way Vishwamitra Muni was greeted by Dasarath. And Dasarath said, Ahistam punarjanma jayaya. How are your efforts going to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death? That's the way they say hello. They don't say, hello, how are you doing? They say, how are your efforts going to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death? And this is the whole purpose of human life. We're not meant to eat, sleep, mate, and defend like animals. And we should limit those things, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, to bare minimum, and increase the effort to free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death, go back to Godhead. And also, as you're going to see, and Prabhupada's going to explain this, not only do we want to free ourselves, we want to free everybody else. Okay, play now.
Similarly, our this Krishna consciousness movement is also meant for the same purpose, punarjanma jaya, for conquering over repetition of birth and death. You should always remember this.
Okay, so he's saying you should always remember this, that the real purpose is to conquer over the cycle of birth and death. And that's the purpose of Krishna consciousness also. And not only for ourselves, but to help many, many others, or ideally the whole rest of the human population on the earth, to do the same thing. Okay, go ahead.
A little mistake will spoil the whole scheme.
Okay.
Little mistake. Nature is very...
What does he mean by a little mistake? That is, if we deviate from following pure Krishna consciousness, you can spoil the whole project. So every devotee, especially those that get initiated, they must be ideal persons that can adhistam punarjayayam. They liberate people, liberate themselves first, and then liberate others from the cycle of birth and death. So there shouldn't be any scandals, there shouldn't be any cheating, there shouldn't be any lying, there shouldn't be any nonsense. we have to be very serious to be able to not only free ourselves but convince others also. Go ahead.
Very strong. Daividhija gunamai mama maya viratva. Very, very strong. So, you all boys and girls, those who have come from America, I'm very much thankful to you. But don't be less serious. Be very serious. And another thing I request, especially to the Americans, that America has good potentiality to save the world.
Okay, stop right there. So, what he said, you might have missed it, but what he said was that this material nature is invincible, in a sense. Daivihi esa gunamai mama maya duradyaya mam evi papadyante mayame tam tarantite, 7th chapter, 14th verse. And the first two lines of it say that the material nature, you cannot defeat it. It's invincible because it's spiritual. It's coming from Krishna. But if you surrender to Krishna, then you can easily cross beyond it. So he says, a little mistake is enough to spoil the whole project. What is the project? Punarjanma Jayayam, to free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death, and then free as many other people as possible, right? To convince them to take up Krishna consciousness sincerely. Although, without Krishna consciousness, it's impossible to overcome the influence of the material nature. But if you surrender to Krishna, then it's very easy to overcome it if you simply follow strictly the regulative principles. Okay, go ahead. And now he's saying, this is what I'm requesting you, young men and women who have become devotees from the United States, that you follow strictly the vows of initiation: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, and chanting sincerely. Go ahead.
So if you preach very nicely in your country, and not all of them will be interested, but if a section of men in your country, you can turn them to become Krishna conscious, it will be great benefit to the whole world. But the aim is the same, Punarjanma Jayaya, to gain victory over this process of birth, death and old age. This is not fiction, this is fact. People are not serious. But you can teach your people, otherwise the whole human society is at risk. They are like animals without any kind, especially this communist movement is very, very dangerous to make.
So, Prabhupada is saying this communist movement is very dangerous. Why? Because it's like what happened in the past. There was Ravana and there was Lord Rama. So Ravana was very dangerous, and he was trying to destroy Vedic Dharma. And his Rakshasas were going all over the world, and they were trying to destroy Brahminical culture and just have everyone act like animals. So the same thing is happening today, where you have communism and other types of false philosophies, and people are running around trying to destroy Vedic Dharma in India as well as all around the world, and stop people from following regulative principles to give them so-called freedom to commit all kinds of sins and not feel guilty about it, right? So this is what they do. They teach you not to feel guilty about committing sinful activities such as abortion, and such as illicit sex, and such as intoxication. And these things are all bad, so they should outlaw these things. But no, they permit all these things. They're called, it's called a sin tax. A sin tax. SINTAX. They permit sinful activities, but you have to pay a tax for it. So therefore, when you buy a pack of cigarettes that only cost maybe 25 or 30 cents to produce, you have to pay $6 to $8 for it now. So the difference between, let's say, 30 cents and $8, there's a huge difference. Where's all that money going? It's all going to the government to permit you to have access to these sinful things. They do the same thing with the four regulative principles, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. They don't stop them. They just make you pay money to be able to do it. And that money goes to the government so that they can build the rockets and atomic bombs and tanks and machine guns and huge amount of bullets and so forth to wage war and kill people. So we see how dangerous the world has become. And he says, even in America, although I'm pleading, you preach to Americans, and but up to 90% of Americans are demons also, and it's the same with most of the Russians, or the communists, they're all demons. But you have a chance, he said. You have a chance to convince, let's say, 10% of the population, or even if it's 1% of the population, that would be enough to change everything. Right? Okay, go ahead.
Big animals. They are already animals. And this movement is making big animals.
Meaning communism.
So I am speaking to America because America is a little serious against this communistic movement, and it can be counteracted because the process is current since a very, very long time. Deva Asura, Devasu, the fight between the demigods and the demons. So the same fight is there in different name, communist and the capitalist. But the capitalists are also 80%, 90% demons. Because they do not know the science of God. That is demonic means. So there is good chance in your country to make them or they rectify their demonic principles, and then they will be very strongly able to fight with the other demons. Because if we become Deva, Deva means Vaishnava. Vishnu Bhakta Bhave Deva. Asuras Tad Viparjay. Those who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, they are called Deva, or demigods. And those are just the opposite number. The opposite number also, they have got some god. Just like the demons, they worship especially Lord Shiva. Ravana, the example, we are not accusing unnecessarily. Ravana was a great demon, but he was devotee. Worshipping Lord Shiva means to gain some material profit. And in the worshipping Vishnu, there is material profit that is given by Vishnu. That is not karma. But Vaishnava, they are not aspiring after any material profit. The material profit automatically comes. But then they do not desire annavilasita sunnam. Material profit is not their aim of life. Their aim of life, how to satisfy Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, that is Vishnu. Vishnu asya devata.
Okay, stop. So, basically he's saying here that those people who worship Lord Shiva, they do it for material profit. And the Vaishnavas also, they also get material profit. Now, what is the difference? The Vaishnava uses the material profit only to serve Krishna, not to serve himself or herself. And the demons, they use the material profit for their own benefit, to become more powerful, to conquer more countries, to do this, to do that. So we see all throughout history there have been big demons, like Ravana was a huge demon, right? But even, Alexander the Great, he was a demon. Napoleon was a demon. Stalin was a demon. Mao Zedong was a demon. Harry Truman was a demon, President of the United States. And then the Emperor of Japan was a demon. So, the demons have always been there, and the devotees have always been there. And this fight is there in all different levels. But the difference is the devotees use any material benefit they get in the service of Krishna. So we have to think about that seriously. If we use money for sense gratification, then that's what Prabhupada said, even a little mistake is enough to spoil the whole project. So what happens when we do that? It spoils our life in Krishna consciousness. And if and that's the first spoil. And then the second spoil is it could spoil the whole project of trying to help other people become free of the cycle of birth and death and go back to Godhead. So it's very important if someone chooses to become a devotee, they have to understand what it means. Now here he's explaining what it means. It means that you're going to be dedicated the rest of your life to please Guru and Krishna. And that means that you're going to have to sacrifice so many things to do that, right? Now, but you're going to sacrifice anyway, whether you follow Krishna consciousness or not, because when you approach death, you're going to lose everything, right? So why not use everything in the service of Krishna and go back to Godhead? Because if you use everything for your selfish purpose and you die, you stay in the material world. And you have to go through the process of birth, death, old age, and disease over and over again in different species. So either way, we're going to lose everything that we've acquired. So why not learn to use all of that in the service of Krishna? Just like a lot of money comes to this temple, there's no doubt about it. But no individual is taking that money for their sense gratification. We're using every penny to expand Krishna consciousness, expand it. Get more and more people to become Krishna conscious. Not because we want their money. We want them to be free of the cycle of birth and death and to become effective preachers of Krishna consciousness to help many more people also. So all you have to do is convince 1% of the population. So 1% of the population in Washington is about 50,000 people. Right? If we could convince 1% of the Washington demographics to become Krishna conscious, this would be a major change in this whole state and even maybe in the United States. And this is what Prabhupada wants. He wants the American devotees, so he's speaking directly to American devotees in this lecture, to preach Krishna consciousness without any deviation and no mistakes, and train a whole generation of people to become Krishna conscious, and that will save the world. He's using these major statements here. He's not exaggerating. He's serious. Okay, go ahead.
Nati and the demands, they do not know that to become Vaishnava, that is the highest perfection of life. They do not know. So anyway, our request is that you, all young men, who have taken to this path of Vaishnavism, and there is very good chance to preach this cult in your country. So, even if you are not very much successful in other countries, in your country you will be very much successful. There is good potential, and try to make them stronger to fight with the demonic principle. Thank you very much.
So I wanted you to hear that, so you get an idea. Well, what are we trying to do here in this Krishna consciousness movement? This is what he wants. He wants us to preach, to become preachers, and to be able to convince people to follow the regulative principles and chant Hare Krishna, and spread Krishna consciousness, and get at least 1% of the population Krishna conscious. See? And it's possible. He's saying maybe it won't succeed in other countries, but it can succeed in this country. Why? Because you have freedom of religion here in America. It's guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. You have freedom of assembly, right? So we can invite hundreds and thousands of people to this temple. They can't stop you, as long as you don't create any problems in the neighborhood. But and we've had festivals like January-2023, 15,000 people in 2 days, right? So they don't stop us, right? In other places, they can stop you, right? In other countries, they can stop you very easily. Now, because of the Constitution of the United States, you have freedom of assembly, you have freedom of religion, you have these different freedoms that are guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. So that's why it's a positive place to preach. You can go out on the street and preach all day long. No one's going to stop you as long as you don't act inappropriately. The only movement they stopped was the Jehovah's Witnesses. Did you know that? Because they were so aggressive on the streets. This was in the 1930s, 1920s and 30s. They were so aggressive that they forced them that they're not allowed to go up to people and talk to them. They have to stand on the corner with their magazine, and someone has to come up to them. They're not allowed to go to people, otherwise they'll arrest you. Because they were so obnoxious in the 1920s and 30s. Look them up, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They were so obnoxious and just pestering people all the time that the government made a special rule about them. Jehovah's Witnesses. They are demons, by the way. If you ever meet a Jehovah's Witness and you offer them prasadam, they'll refuse right away. They'll never accept it. What's it say? Yeah. Do they accept your cookie or your burrito? Yeah. Go ahead. Where's the microphone?
It looks like it's for a short term, maybe. Here it says Jehovah's Witnesses resume door-to-door visits for the first time since pandemic. So they are doing?
No, they're not. No, when they go out into public, let's say, like we do, we go out and do Sankirtan, we distribute burritos and books. They're not allowed to go up to people and ask them. They can go door to door. That's an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not allowed to go out on the street like we do and like other people do and preach to people. They can stand there with their magazine and people have to come to them. They can't go to the people on the streets. Look that up. Look up. Jehovah's Witnesses have been limited in their preaching in public.
By 1988, U.S. Supreme Court had reviewed 71 cases. In 1988, the U.S. Supreme Court had witnessed 71 cases involving Jehovah's Witness as an organization.
In 2002, they disputed in an ordinance in Ohio that required a permit in order to preach from door to door. However, they're saying that Supreme Court decided in favor of the witness.
That's to go door to door,
Yeah.
not in the street.
So many United States Supreme Court cases involved with Jehovah's Witness have shaped First Amendment law. Significant cases affirm rights, right to refrain from compulsory flag statute and preaching in public.
Okay, what did it say about preaching in public? Anyway, they're allowed to go out on the street, but they're not allowed to go directly to people and stop them and speak to them like we do. Because they were so obnoxious in earlier time that they made a special law against them. Now, they might have let them go door to door, because that's dealing on an individual basis. Yeah.
During the late 1930s and 40s, Jehovah's Witnesses attacked the Roman Catholic Church and other Christian denominations so vigorously that many states and municipalities passed laws against their inflammatory preaching.
Passed laws about what?
Passed laws against their inflammatory preaching. Inflammatory.
Inflammatory. That means they're so aggressive. Inflammatory means that it's like they set a fire, right? It's so aggressive and so obnoxious that they were a nuisance. Okay? All right, so anyway, that's it. You see, there are laws specifically for them because they were basically acting in a very, very obnoxious way with the public. So we have to be careful. That could happen to us also. So we should not engage in anything that is, let's say, abusive, because this is a great benediction being in America. You can go and talk to anybody you want on the street. But if you are aggressive and you violate their, let's say, their privacy by trying to force them, then they could stop us. Just like they stopped the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was in the 1930s and 40s when that happened.
When their children were not allowed to go to public schools. It was very massive.
Yeah, okay. So, that's why Prabhupada says it's just a little mistake is enough to spoil the whole project. Okay, get the microphone.
So there was one particular article talking about one of the Jehovah's Witnesses being arrested for violating New Hampshire law prohibiting the use of offensive, derisive, and annoying words towards others and preventing them from going about their lawful business. So I think they were aggressive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were really bad. Now we have to be careful because we're going out on the streets, right? But if we become offensive to the public, they'll pass a law against us also, right? Because if enough people complain, you know, you don't have a right to interrupt another person's freedom of speech or freedom of movement or whatever. So it's an art to be able to go out on the street and preach to people and not offend them and not get into arguments and not to be offensive where you're trying to force them to accept something. Okay, now all this is important because Prabhupada says even a little mistake is enough to ruin the whole project. That's his lecture today. Even a little mistake is enough to ruin the whole project. So we don't want to ruin the project of spreading Krishna consciousness by misbehaving with the public. Okay. So now, that is our class today. I didn't want to discuss anything else today. If you just understand this one thing, adhistam punarjanma jayayam. How are your efforts going to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death? We should think about this. What are we actually doing seriously to free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death? So that the only way is through Krishna consciousness. By surrendering to Krishna everything, not just surrendering one thing, but everything to Krishna. So how do you surrender everything to Krishna? Well, you have to have the desire to please Krishna through his following his instructions. And what are his instructions? His instruction is that Daivihi Esagunamayi, Mama Maya Duradya, Mama Ivaye Papadyante, Mayametam Tarantite. It's impossible to overcome the material nature or to control it because it's spiritual. The material nature is spiritual. It's apara prakriti, the inferior spiritual energy of the Lord. But one who surrenders unto me can easily overcome it. So, and then Sarvadharmam Purityaja Mami Kam Saranam Braja Ham Tvam Sarvapabhibhyo Moksishyami Masuchaha. Krishna tells Arjuna, and actually he's telling everyone, just surrender unto me, and then I promise you I'll free you from all karma, and you will come back to me. So these are direct instructions to us. And if we hesitate, we say, "Oh no, how can I surrender everything? I don't want to surrender everything. I don't want to surrender my this thing or that thing. I like drinking wine. I like eating meat sometimes." And well, even a little mistake is enough to spoil the whole thing. So we have to decide. If you want to get initiated, you have to decide to follow all the rules of Krishna consciousness. And that is the secret of success. Look how successful Prabhupada became. Look how successful other devotees have become just by following all the rules and regulations and spreading Krishna consciousness. Now Prabhupada is saying, look, it is possible to turn the entire United States into Krishna consciousness. He said, you have a chance here. You might not be able to do it in other countries, he said, but you can do it here. And I'm asking you now, he said, I'm asking you, you Americans who have become devotees, you try and transform the whole country. It's possible, because he's saying it's possible. Right? Okay, we'll stop right there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol.
So, yeah, I'm reading it. So, Maharaj, there is an online question about how do we train ourselves to be a preacher?
You don't train yourself. You get trained by experts. You don't train yourself. You get trained. Training yourself. That's what all the nonsense people want to do. They want to train themselves. How are you going to train yourself? You get trained by accepting guru, shiksha and diksha gurus, and they train you. It's like every day we're having this class for your training to be Krishna conscious, to understand what is pure Krishna consciousness, what is mixed Krishna consciousness, what is not Krishna consciousness. So we want pure Krishna consciousness. That's training. Right? So, and then if you simply follow the 4 regulative principles that you promise to do at initiation, and then chant minimum 16 good rounds every day, you'll be trained right there. We're not asking you to do anything Herculean. We're not saying, well, you have to climb up to the top of Mount Everest, then you can be Krishna conscious. Well, how many people can climb up to the top of Mount Everest? How many people could do that, you think? Very few, right? So we're not saying you have to do something like that. We're saying, look, there's 4 regulative principles. Just follow them, right? No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. And chant Hare Krishna sincerely without committing any of the 10 offenses. It's not complicated. It's fun. That's the training. So if you do that, then if you follow these simple rules and regulations, you get trained. But you need someone who supervises you. Like, you can say, well, I don't want anyone to teach me anything. I'll just learn to play the violin myself. Well, yes and no. You might learn to play the violin somewhat, but you will never become a real expert. But if you have a trainer, then you can do that. You could become an expert in playing the violin. So in the same way, you don't train yourself. You get trained by bona fide Shiksha and Diksha gurus. So did the person say, how can I train myself?
He said, how do we train ourselves?
Yeah. Okay.
The English, yeah, but yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? If not, then we'll have Guru Puja. Haribol. And guess who's going to sing today? Who's going to sing? Oh, okay. Go ahead. Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami said, success is guaranteed for the strict practitioner. Success is guaranteed for the strict practitioner. If you strictly follow Krishna consciousness rules and regulations, you will be successful. And if you don't, it's guaranteed that you'll be a failure. You don't want to touch the microphone with your lips, right?
I'm not.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Banamori Savadana Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jai Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Hoy Te
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya
Terana Koriya Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Maneya Sa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sa
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudana Dila Jai Janmi Janmi Prabhu Se
दिव्य गाएंगे मैं प्रभु श्री prakasito.
Jai Gyani Jai Prakasito.
Prema bhakti jaha hote avidya vinasha jate.
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasha Jate.
Vediga jahara charita.
Vediga Janara Charito.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Ajama Janara Bandhu.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu.
Lokena lokera jivana.
Lokena Lokera Jivana.
Ha ha Prabhu kara daya deyama revada chaya.
Aha Prabhu Kora Doya De Amore Pada Jaya.
Because Gushu Tribhuvana.
Beyaz Kusukti Bhuvana.
Prabhupada Pita Pavana.
Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Guru Deva Jaya, Guru Deva Jaya, Guru Deva Jaya, Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Vashata Vishatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Vaskatya Nishatarine.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Srivatsari Garbhadva Vrinda.
Shri Krishna
Sorry. Garbhadva Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Tarasatarashi Shishimadi's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Silaridasta Guru Ki Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidvaita Radha Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Budani Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Risitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Show them. Oh, they left. Okay. Oh no. Show them this. The couple, so they know where to look at this when we're singing.